Again, he would say, no slow songs today, boys. So we learned a lot of fast songs, and even the rhythm of the milking machines. There's still that rhythm going. It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a log.
When the smoke of change was rising, you pondered with your pen. Are there new horizons? Are they all with a different name? And the answers to your questions still knock upon our door. Are the strong still richer? And are the weak still poor? There was joy, there was sorrow, there were rocky roads to follow, and dreams for tomorrow. When times were unkind, there were moments of glory and thousands of stories always before me. Those were the times.
My name is Tommy Sands, a member of the Sands family. This is Mourne country here, the place where I grew up, and all those little villages and crossroads and houses in the valleys. Places where bards moved between with their stories and songs down through the years, bringing colour between the black and white of life. Today I try to do that too. I gather stories here and songs there and ideas somewhere else and bring them all over the world. I am the wee Fallury man, a rattle and roaring Irishman. I'll do all that ever you can, for I am the wee Fallury man. I have a sister Mary Ann, she washes her face with a frying pan. She combs her hair with the leg of a chair, and she scratches her belly with her big toenail. It was here I learned reading and writing. This is St. Patrick's Primary School, Mayo Bridge, the first place that I get any education formally. And in fact, I haven't been in this room for over 40 years. This is where I started off. The desks seem to be an awful lot smaller. Did I ever sit in one of those desks? My Auntie Jane, she's very strange. She's always eating snots and snails. Monkey's guts and donkey's tails. My Auntie Jane is very strange. I learned my first note of music from Master McAvoy. He was a very big man. He used to come on a motorbike in the morning, and he had a fiddle under one arm and a stick under the other. And depending on his mood, that's what may have happened that day. And he taught us songs in Irish, and we all learnt them because he had a very interesting method. If you hadn't learnt it by dinner time, you wouldn't get your dinner. And it's amazing what the absence of food can create internally. You learn things.
Goodbye, John Joe. What? It's getting very late and the morning comes early. Goodbye, John Joe. It's time I was home in my bed. Goodbye, John Joe. It's getting very late and the morning comes early. Goodbye, John Joe. It's time I was home in my bed.
This is a house where I grew up. The whole family lived in here. The Ryan Road, just up there, a few fields. Back up there, Mayo Bridge, about 3.5 miles as a crow flies. A little bit further if it walked. Rathfriland would be about 5 miles that way, and Uri about 6 miles that way. We never owned this house. We were tenants. The landlord is a man called Davy Wilson. And Davy used to come on horseback on a big mare called Flo. And he would come into the house and he would collect his 6 pence a week. That was the rent. And my mother would always give him a boiled egg out of respect.
I come from the land with the pretty school, big in the garters and handy can dance a fine tick in the vice of a charm. Your heart for the sea, the rare and fine fellas from Tantaragee. Here's to the boys that are happy and gay, singing and dancing and tearing away. Frolics and frisky and free with their rollicking ways around Tantaragee.
I remember being sent to bed because I was too young to stay up, but listening to the sound of my father's fiddle leaking underneath the bedroom door and the light of an oil lamp. And I suppose it is more sinful to go to sleep than to stay awake when that music was happening. And by the time I was old enough to stay up, I probably knew all the songs, or a lot of them.
And where's the man, either Christian or Turk, the big one, the Pope, Robert, them with their work, and where's the law, you can speak up like down the stipple and not but up to the one. And where's the singer could sing like Tom Moore's melodies, charm every care from your door, well, fit them all your place, and then you will see the rare fine fellas from Canterbury. Here's the boys that are happy and gay, singing and dancing and tearing away, frolicsome, frisky and free. We're the rollicking boys round Tandragee.
Growing up on a farm in many ways was very idyllic and beautiful, but it was tough. It wasn't easy. A farm supported the family. It wasn't something to have a holiday on, and everybody worked from the age of 5 upwards, because you'd be involved in gathering spuds, maybe in a very cold October evening after walking 3 miles home from school, and tying corn maybe, as soon as you learned how to do it. And there was a great technique in tying corn or tying hay. But sometimes there were thistles in the corn, and if the thistles got into your fingers, you dare not stop to pull them out, or you'd be called, what sort of an old woman are you?
And I myself have left the farm, the common market did the harm. There's going to be an awful storm unless there are some changes. Says I, says to him, says I, says I to him. Says I, says to him, there'll have to be some changes.
My first business trip was to Newry on a bus with 2 chickens in a bag. Got onto the bus and sat on with a hen at each side of me. And as I say, their legs were tied. At least I thought their legs were tied. One of them managed to kick itself free and perched up on top of the place where you normally put luggage. And he started to squeal and squawk and eventually relieved itself. But when I got to the town, I realized I would have to claim it. It's one of the most embarrassing moments.
When the Pope allows divorce, we'll get married then. Dislodge King Billy from his horse, and we'll get married then. Oh, you're so full of bigotry, you're narrow eyes, you cannot see. Why can't you be more like me? We'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. Well, Santa Claus shaves off his whiskers. We'll get married then. When a prod becomes a Pope of Rome, we'll get married then. When a Catholic sits on an English throne, we'll get married then. When Ian Paisley drinks a whiskey with young Bernadette McAliskey, that's the day that I will kiss you. We'll get married then. We'll get married then. We'll get married then.
Newry town, Newry city. We come from just a few miles out the road there, but we did our business here. But people spoke differently. People moved faster. They looked at each other and they looked at us in a different way. And all the smells and sounds that we would sense in here were different to the sounds and smells and tastes in the countryside. I suppose when we go abroad, people say, you come from Newry. We say yes, because they wouldn't know where Ryan was or Mayo Bridge was in Moscow. Mightn't even know where Newry was. But we say yes, we come from Newry, but we don't really. As a family, growing up together and living together and traveling together and sometimes literally singing for our supper together, it meant that we were very close, not just brothers and sisters, but as friends. And I think that is very important, And if one felt that the other was feeling a little bit down, then you'd be over there to give them a lift. Sometimes people ask, when did you actually start? When did you move from playing just at home into a professional sort of way, or when did you decide this? We never actually decided it. It just happened. We didn't have any business plans. Although there was never a beginning, there was very nearly an end when Dino died, our brother. He was killed in Hamburg during a tour. And we didn't want to go back on the road after that at all. And people asked us, well, what would Dino want you to do? Would he want you to keep on playing? And of course we knew he would. And we almost, just as one, we all moved back on the road again because we felt it was right. And besides, that's what we do.
Well, it's a Saturday, Miss Mary Ann, and she come from someplace near Strabane. But over here in Melbourne, Ireland seems so far away. She had a tape of Matt Malloy, 10 floors up in a lonely sky. I watched a tear come to her eye when she heard the music play. On the way from home, on the way from home, on the way from home, on the way from home.
This is a bath which has been put out. I remember the days before baths were put in. And living in the Ryan Road, at a time when men were walking on the moon, we still didn't have the running water. Well, the only running water we had was running to the well with a bucket for it, as my mother used to say, take two, it will balance you. And I remember the discussion with the running water coming down the Ryan Road and all the dangers were being cited by wise men. Words like, it could be a very dangerous thing, the bath. It opens your pores and you never know what comes in. And other stories about kitchen sinks overflowing and wrecking the place. But things have changed very, very quickly in a very, very short time in this area. And well, I think the man who owned this field was a well-off farmer. 2 baths.
I asked her if she would marry and come along with me. She said, I thank you kindly, but that it never could be. For I have got the true love who left this very shore, and I promised I'd be waiting on the misty mooring shore. Mary, in the morning, I miss you all the more. Mary, in the morning, on the misty mooring shore.
We were singing songs at home since I was very young, but those songs that we were singing, we wouldn't have sung them much outside of home. People might have laughed at them because those songs were associated a little bit with the past that a lot of people wanted to get away from. But then I came in one night to this town hall in Uri, back in the early 60s, and the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem were playing. And in many ways, it changed my life.
I tell my ma when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They want my hair, they stole my comb, but that's all right till I go home.
Because this group had been given legitimacy in America, and sometimes we tend to regard this respectability coming from the other side in some way or other. But when these people come back from America as heroes, suddenly we realised that these songs that we were singing were not something belonging to the past, very real, new, modern and hip and pop, or call it what you like. And it gave us great courage to go on and come out from under the cowl and get out onto a stage and travel all over the place with the music.
Don't call me early in the morning, Call me what you want to, but leave me alone. Don't call me early in the morning. Just leave me till the cows are coming home. Fair is fair, and I've done my share. My nerves are getting on me nerves. If you don't have a pillow of the white swan's feather, I'll do with the corner for my head. Don't call me early in the morning. Call me what you want to, but leave me alone. Don't call me early in the morning. Just leave me till the cows are coming home.
Down through the years, I've recorded in many recording studios, from America to Europe and so on. But this was the first place I ever recorded, because Billy McBurney in Outlet Records in Belfast, he wanted us to send him a demo because he wanted us to do an album with him. And we had no electricity. And the only people with electric in this whole area was Pat Brennan here. And Pat had a generator for milking the cows. And he only turned it on during the time the cows were being milked. That's the plug that we plugged the tape recorder into. And we recorded Rathfriland on the Hill here, the rocks of Bunny Gibraltar, the Maid of Balladoo. You wouldn't know much about that, but your great-grandmother would have heard it in this very bar. Yeah, boy, yeah.
I think I see it still, that little town in County Down, Rathfriland on the Hill.
That demo we did in the bar led to a record, and then we went to the competition in Dublin, and the prize was a trip to New York, New York. We won that, and we were very young. I was 21, but Anne, she was only 13 or 14 or something like that. Then we came back from the States and discovered that the record that we demoed in the bar was being played on German radio, and we were invited over there and ended up behind the Iron Curtain, but 1974. And it's wonderful that when we go back there now, 30 years later, we find the children of the teenagers who are coming to our concerts now.
And suddenly, the wind blew the door open. And what stood there but a big, black, slabbery-mouthed dog. And the eyes were standing in his head like sausages. And his teeth were like the 10 Commandments. Nearly all broken.
I'm just trying to find Mayo Bridge in this map of the world here. Yeah, there's Lower Mayo Bridge and there's Upper Mayo Bridge. My first geographical journey began in this school in Mayo Bridge. Master McAvoy brought us on a journey all around the world. He said, imagine you're leaving here on an airplane. There wasn't an airport here at the time, actually. Still isn't. But if there was an airport, we'd be traveling right across the world. And we went all around the world, I remember, and we had to learn it all before we got our dinner. I remember strange places like Bangkok, the capital of Thailand. And I've been to most of these places now. It's amazing. And in fact, the St. Patrick's Society of Thailand invited me over to play there. It was the only Irish pub in the world where I met a host of waitresses without a flitter on any of them. Of course, it was very hot. It's very hot weather over there.
The kittens looked up at the cat with great fear in their eyes. And the cat looked at the dog, and the cat says to the dog, "Bark!" Well, this particular dog never had heard a cat bark before. He put his tail between his legs, jumped through the thickest part of a hedge and over fields and ditches and bogs and briars, running through the night because he'd never heard a cat bark before. And the cat says to the kittens, "Always remember, children, what I always tell you.
it is very important to have a second language.
There was a farmer in the west with me arms, yaddy-o. He had a wife and she wasn't the best, and they called for more and Maggie-o. More and Maggie-o, one of the Ignam yarners. She had 6 cows to milk and tie with me arms, yaddy-o. And she lay in her bed till they all ran dry, and they called her more and Maggie-o. More and Maggie-o, one of the Ignam yarners. She went to the market some eggs to sell with me arms, yaddy-o. She sucked the yolks and she sold the shells, and they called her more and Maggie-o. More and Maggie-o, one of the Ignam yarners.
Humpty Dumpty was pushed. I read that on a toilet wall in Belfast. It's in a mixed pub, and I didn't know the pub very well, so I went to the bathroom to read the graffiti, because it usually gives you a very good idea of the clientele they're in. And amazing the things you see written on walls. I remember seeing in Belfast things like Paisley for Pope, or help the police, beat yourself up. But I came across Humpty Dumpty was pushed, and I liked that very much, because there's so many things that we learned when we were going to school, like Humpty Dumpty falling off a wall, which turned out not to be true at all. So I came to the conclusion that Humpty Dumpty probably was pushed, and I wrote a song about it.
The following morning the headlines were tall, really it was inevitable. Mr. Dumpty was drunk and he fell from the wall, and perhaps a bit cracked and shell-shocked and all. Humpty Dumpty was pushed, head over heels all over the wall. Humpty Dumpty was pushed, and nobody knew it at all.
And I feel that in writing songs, it's important to look beyond the obvious. If you look at the political situation here over the past number of years, it's a little bit like watching 2 buses meeting on a narrow bridge, and neither driver wanted to give way because he didn't want to let down his passengers. And it's only when the passengers got up and went to the driver and said, look, it's all right, you can reverse a little bit. It's only then the landscape began to change. And I think musicians, singers, songwriters, we all have a part to play in that, because otherwise, why be here?
Nothing was right and nothing was wrong until I was forced for to learn this new song. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men in will rest.
This is Rostrevor, the land of Kilbrony, a beautiful place of the world where people have been coming for years. It's a wonderful place to have a holiday here because the temperature here is warmer. The warm winds blow and people come. In fact, traditionally old people came here to die, but then they forgot to die because it is so nice and healthy, and it's a good place to be. This is where I live in here. We don't open this gate too often, but on a special occasion like yourselves, when you come, we have to open up. And actually, we've been here about 22 years or so. Colm and myself, my brother Colm lives in there, and that's a studio over there. And actually, this place belonged to the Queen Mother's people, the Bowes-Lyons people, not just here, but the whole area that you can see through the gateway there, the Kilbrony Forest Park, a beautiful area. And do you not remember? We once walked side by side, and the bells of Belfast City sang harmony and pride. The past it has been taken, but the future's yours and mine, down by the Lagan side. And when we dance, we'll dance together. When we cry, we'll hold each other. We were working with EMI Records in around 1975 and 76. And after a while we discovered that the only type of material that commercial records companies wanted was commercial material. And we were writing a lot of songs at the time, and we couldn't find an outlet for this. And then we discovered that, like ourselves, many other people were writing songs but had no outlet for these songs. So Colm, my brother, and myself decided to do something about this, and many records were done in this studio here. And so in a way it opened up something different, which was not formally available to singers and songwriters in the country here.
She whispered a wish at Braun as well. She danced with the fish in the fairy glen. And up on the hillside, so green and so wide, I first kissed a flower of fiddler's green. Fiddler's green, fiddler's green, it's there that I met her and loved her forever. Fiddler's green, fiddler's green, by the dark rolling hills of Rostrevor.
This is the best place in the world, Cloughmore. Down below is Rostrevor, where I live. On the far side of Carlingford Lough, the Cooley Mountains, County Louth. And I've been coming up here religiously for years to the Big Stone.
One of these days, when my roving is o'er, I'll head for the hills by the dark mooring shore, and there I will rest in the land of my dreams, rolled in the arms of fiddler's
This
green.
stone has been a notice board and a signpost for centuries. You can see many names cut out there, graffiti, hundreds of years old. In fact, when Down won the All-Ireland back in 1960, it was painted red and black for the whole countryside to see. That is an exciting time. Remember, there was the headlines in the paper, it said, it was during the Kennedy-Khrushchev crisis, it said, Khrushchev backs Down. Someone said, why wouldn't he? Aren't they going to win? But for the All-Ireland final, we decided to go, the whole family. Because we were very much into football. I actually won a county medal with Saville, by the way. But we all went to that All-Ireland, and we had no tickets, of course, but you could get in if you went very early. We were at the gates at Croke Park at 10 o'clock in the morning. And what a day that was in 1960. People, they say, threw hats up into the air, and hats that never came back down again. This one did. That's life.
And there'll be dancing, romancing, and never more we'll roam.
The Flying Gardener drops in next on BBC Two.
In the day when the boys come rolling home.